Welcome to the AA Big Book Podcast, a primer for our textbook for sobriety, commonly called the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. This podcast is my own personal opinion, my experience, and my guidance for helping anyone who wants to understand the AA way. I'm not speaking for AA as a meeting, or a group, or as a whole. All opinions expressed are my own. Why do I get to tell anyone about AA? I believe in service to others as we trudge the road of happy destiny. It's part of my sobriety, and this is how I can share my experience, strength, and hope. I'm not trying to be pushy, and you're welcome to move on to another AA-oriented podcast if you don't like what you hear. So, let's get started. Sponsors for Dummies, or finding the right sponsor for you in your program. So this podcast has a number of tips and tricks on how to evaluate your current sponsor or how to look around and find a sponsor. What happens if your sponsor dies? I mean, these things happen. So if you're navigating the journey of alcohol recovery and wondering, how do I find a sponsor? Then this guide will hopefully help you do that. Unfortunately, the Big Book does not have a lot of tips and tricks about finding or retaining or changing sponsors. So we'll cover help. I don't have a sponsor, and can you have a sponsor of the opposite sex? What should you expect from your sponsor? What does your sponsor expect from you? What's a temp sponsor? You got a sponsor. Now what do you do? Help. A sponsor passed away. And then fun, finally, how to fire your sponsor. So help, I don't have a sponsor. Okay, you're brand new. You have been told that you need to get a home group, a big book, and a sponsor. So you're sitting in a meeting and you finally say, hey guys, I need some help. And you look around and everyone looks like they're all happy to see you, but nobody comes up to you and says, I'll be your sponsor. And those are really, unfortunately, more the norm than the exception. A lot of old school thought process goes into, hey man, you got to go ask someone. Some of the new school processes thoughts are, let's go ahead and help the person who asks. Personally, if you sit in a meeting I'm in and you tell me that you're having a problem and no one will help you, I will at least suggest that I can help as a temp sponsor to get you started. We'll cover that in a little bit. Can you have a sponsor of the opposite sex? Maybe. They don't have any rules that say you can't. It's generally frowned upon unless you're in an area where you're the only guy in a meeting for 25 miles, or vice versa, you're the only lady in a meeting area that only has one meeting a month or whatever. I mean, I'm trying to use some extreme examples here. People who say, oh, I'm more comfortable with someone of the opposite sex. That's not the point of this getting a sponsor thing. Not being comfortable is part of what's going to be transformative. And sometimes you're going to be talking about things of a highly personal nature. You know, we have enough time talking about our sexual relations and how comfortable we are in our own skin as we get to recovery, let alone doing it with someone of the opposite sex when you're trying to disclose some of the most deep, dark personal problems, issues, and shit that you've done in the past. Not recommended unless it's a temp sponsor to help you get through the beginning steps so that you get started, get your feet on the path. What should you expect from a sponsor? A sponsor should guide you through the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. They should be there. They should respect your personal boundaries. They should never engage in asking you, rather, to engage in illegal activities or anything unethical. They are not supposed to make you their slave or whipping boy so that you are moving boxes for them on a Saturday because they don't want to do it. Although you may be asked to do community service and you may be lifting those boxes because they're full of food to hand out to people who don't have it. Sponsors are mentors. They're not lenders. They're not your therapist. They may become trusted confidants. They may be good friends in the end. But during the process, remember, they are there to guide you through a journey of self-discovery and change. And they may do it well or they may not. What do you have to give your sponsor? Well, you have to be open. You have to be honest. You have to be committed to the recovery process. When your sponsor asks if you will do anything to get sober, the only answer is yes. But You should keep in regular contact with your sponsor, call or text. I make it a point to ask my sponsees to text me once a day, call me once a week. Make sure that you're getting to a meeting or two. Some sponsors will want you to go to 5 meetings. Some may want more, some may want less. It's up to the sponsor to work with you on that. Embrace this guidance because you're working towards your sobriety. And here's something they don't tell you. Your sponsor's only as good as the person who taught them, which is a good time to mention what a grand sponsor is. Your sponsor's sponsor is a grand sponsor. They learned what they know from them, and they learned it from the ones prior. This is a verbally passed down system with a book, a blue big book as our guide, textbook, and study material for this program. So you may have a sponsor that starts out well, but you don't like them after a while. That's not a problem. You be prepared that if your sponsor asks you to do things that you find uncomfortable, fire your sponsor and find someone else. No part of this recovery process should make you feel anything other than empowered and growing and finally getting yourself on the path to recovery. What is a temp sponsor? As I said, a temp sponsor is someone who guarantees to work with you for the first 3 steps, making sure that you're getting on the path. I tell my sponsees, I will guarantee the first 3 steps. If you're still comfortable after that, we'll keep going. Otherwise, if you find someone you're more comfortable with, no problem, no harm, no foul. As I mentioned earlier, I had a sponsor pass away. He was my original sponsor. He was a great guy. I was out of town, and unfortunately, he passed away over the holidays. And I came back to this void. This person I had known, this person that had guided me, taken me through the steps, watched me grow spiritually, was gone. And it was like my heart hurt. But I took a little bit of time and I looked around and I found another sponsor because you need someone that's going to keep you on the path, keep your feet grounded. Now we also come to firing your sponsor. This can happen at any time. You are not married to your sponsor. Or you better not be, I should say. This is when you get to the point of saying, I'm either not growing, or I'm unhappy, or I want more, or maybe I just need to go and discover something from someone else, because you will hear most sponsors say, I don't want what you have to a sponsee, because that sponsee is raw and they haven't done the steps and they haven't seen the change. So if you don't see in your sponsor what you want, it's time to move on. Don't stay in a bad situation. Don't suffer and muddle through. Cut the cord and move on and find someone that will take you through the steps the way that you are comfortable with. Hey, I've known people that because they have a mutual love of music, got along great as sponsee. They had something to bond over. So look around and see who you may or may not gel or bond with. My first sponsor, as I mentioned, wasn't the first person I asked. I had been going to meetings for a few weeks and I knew that I needed a sponsor, and I looked around and I saw this older gentleman and I thought, man, he's really cool. And I love his sobriety and the way he presents himself at meetings. And we were outside before a meeting one night and I was about to ask him to be my sponsor. And he made a political comment that was just absolutely diametrically opposed to mine. And I went, nope, that is not my sponsor. I asked the second person, who was really upfront with me, really nice. They said, look, I don't have enough time, not really ready to do that. And I understood that too. And the third person I asked became my sponsor and took me through my steps. So it's not a one and done. You're not guaranteed that it's going to happen with the first person, but keep pushing forward. Make sure that you're taking time to look around and find a sponsor that fits, because that's going to make your program that much stronger. So, for those who are unable to drink moderately, the question is how to stop altogether. Close quote. Page 34, Big Book. That is not an answer that I have and isn't an answer I'm trying to give with this podcast. I'm just trying to help the next suffering alcoholic to understand this wonderful, weird, confusing, and bewildering program that can help you get sober.